Hello and welcome to Runkle of the Bailey. My name is Ian Runkle. I'm a Canadian criminal defense and firearms lawyer. Today I want to talk about something that happened here in Edmonton with the Edmonton Police Service. Now, to give a bit of backstory so that you understand what's going on, a woman was the victim of a very serious attack. And when I say that this attack was horrific, it's so bad that if I give all the details, YouTube will probably take down this video or otherwise punish it so it doesn't get seen. So I'm just going to skirt around that and just note that it was a really horrible attack. She almost died as a result of it. Now, unfortunately, her attacker was bundled up in clothing and was wearing a mask, so the only details she was really able to give the police about her assailant was that it was a black male. So that's all the police had. That and some DNA. So they ran this DNA, I am certain, in their databases to see if it was a match with anyone whose DNA they'd already sampled, and came back with nothing because, this is somebody who's not in the system. Now, once they've got this DNA, if that person ever ends up in the DNA database as a result of committing another offense, then it'll match up and they can pursue charges at that time. And that can happen whether it's 5 years later, 10 years, 40 years later. There's no statute of limitations on this kind of offense. So whoever this is now basically, if they ever end up with their DNA in the system, they're potentially going to be in a lot of trouble. But the police didn't want to stop there, and otherwise they were really kind of looking at a case going cold because they've got a really minimal description, they've got no matches. How are they going to get beyond this? So what they decided to do was they decided to hire a company that does what's called DNA phenotyping. And so what they do is they look at the DNA and they analyze it for certain traits, and they try to make a guess as to, from that DNA as to what kind of traits the person who committed the offense might have. And so that generated a little sort of prediction report, and the Edmonton Police Service posted this online. So let's have a look at that. All right, so you can see the tweet where they're talking about how they're using DNA phenotyping for the first time in its history in the hopes of identifying a suspect in a 2019 SA. And they've got this little image here, and you can see it's this little breakdown. It's got a picture there, of the suspect apparently, as well as sex, age, body mass, ancestry. So let's go through this. Sex, they're going to be able to determine pretty well from DNA. DNA is excellent at that, and it says male. But they already knew male because of the nature of the offense. That's something they knew 100%. So not super helpful. Age, unknown, but the image is shown at age 25. And the reason why the image is shown at age 25 is basically they're making a guess. That's kind of peak criminality for a lot of people. It's, after that it sort of starts to drop off. So they're just kind of making a guess, but they can't tell at all because your DNA doesn't really tell you how old somebody is. So they can't tell this. It's just purely a guess. The person could be younger, could be older. We don't know. Body mass, unknown, shown at BMI 22. This one is a pure guess, whereas the other one is kind of playing the odds about sort of criminal sort of age brackets. This one is we're just pulling a number out of the air. Person could be skinnier, they could be larger. We're just making a guess because we pretty much have to pick a number here. But of course, your weight is not encoded in your DNA. There's a lot of environmental factors there, how much you exercise, how much you eat, and so forth. Maybe, if you have injuries, or there's all sorts of things that go into it. Ancestry, East African. And then they've got a little breakdown in terms of regions where they say 50.43% Africa East. Okay, so that's a coin toss. 26.54 Africa West, and Africa South 20.87. Okay, so all of that tells us basically black male, which we already knew. Awesome. Skin color, 99.4% confidence of dark brown or brown. But we already knew that, so we haven't learned anything new here because we already knew that detail. Eye color, brown or black at 50.3% confidence. Well, 50.3%, that sounds like a coin toss to me. And this would have been nice because this might have actually been a new detail But at a 50%, I'm not super feeling thrilled about that. All right, hair color, black, 99.99% confidence. Well, I don't feel like this is a new detail either. And hair color is something that is really changeable because, for instance, people can dye their hair. Or, say, if you ran my DNA, what it would probably tell you is, hey, this guy's got brown hair. But you're not going to pick me out of a lineup based on brown hair. I went gray super early, and that's not something that's necessarily going to show up in this report. Freckles, 0 at 97.6% confidence. Okay, not super helpful, I don't feel like. But we've got this picture, right? Now people can go and compare this. Oh, wait, I've got the wrong picture up. This isn't actually the picture that was on there. This is a picture I generated in Midjourney using the prompt of random black male. All right, so let's get rid of that. Whoops, my bad. Let's bring up the picture they've got. So this is the picture that they circulated out to the public. And here's the problem. DNA phenotyping is no good for generating pictures like this. When they've tried this, it is just not successful. People are typically unable to look at the pictures generated by these kinds of systems and match them to the actual human beings. So this is not a picture of the suspect. This is actually just a picture of a random black male who sort of fits these ages and body masses and so forth. So the actual offender is as likely to look like the picture I pulled up using Midjourney and just random black male as the prompt as they are to look like this guy. Now, you might think, okay, what's the harm? Well, if you happen to look like this dude, the harm is pretty serious because you might have people trying to turn you into the cops for an incredibly serious offense when you didn't do anything. And that can mess up your whole life. Can you imagine the newspaper reports? DNA phenotyping leads to arrest of your name here, and you're, in very serious, and it's going to give all the lurid details because the newspapers can print stuff that I can't put on YouTube. So, at that point, good luck getting employed ever again. And, if in 3 weeks it's, oh, right, DNA testing clears suspect who was arrested, well, the good news is that they'll publish that on the 30th page, and you'll still never get employed again in your life because this will absolutely wreck you. So for whoever happens to look like this person, the consequences are real serious. The other thing is that this DNA phenotyping is not cheap. They paid about $10,000. Other reports have indicated that that is the going rate for the company that does this. $10,000 per profile, and really all it gave us is black male, which we already knew, and a picture which they made up and isn't actually the person. It's just a picture that is a made up image that has those traits, which is black male. So they basically paid $10,000 for racism, which is not fantastic. And, people are saying, well, we got to try everything in order to get the person. Well, maybe we could try not making things up, because making things up is not helping get the actual criminal. It's just making things up. It's getting us further away from the actual person, because somebody might have thoughts about who the actual person is, and then they see the image and go, oh, well, I was so worried. I thought it might be my brother who did this, but then I saw the image that the police got out of DNA, and it's nothing like him, so I guess I can relax. I don't need to go to the police with this lead. So this could as easily generate false leads or kill real leads. And the other thing is, let's say they catch the person and they now are building a case. Do you think that the defense lawyer, if the person happens to not look like this, isn't going to pull up this picture and say, well, the police released this image that was as a result of this DNA testing, and my client looks nothing like this, so clearly he's innocent? I could certainly see it. I will expect it. And, the odds that it looks like their image is about the same as it looks like my image. Could be looks like either, could be looks like neither. So, yeah, this is a whole lot of money spent on just creating a some false information that they just put out into the world. So as a result of public pressure, although not everybody has been critical of this, some people have, again, been saying, well, they've got to do everything to pursue a lead. This is not pursuing the lead. This is burying the lead. So the EPS has now retracted this tweet, and they've put up a statement online, and so we'll just go through that statement here. So EPS statement on DNA phenotyping. So it starts off with, my name is Enyina, I think I've got that, O'Care. Now, why do you think I've got some cynical notions about why they're putting the name in? Because I rarely see names going into police statements. So I hope I'm not right about this, but if I am, EPS, that's real gross. And as Chief Operating Officer for the Community Safety and Wellbeing Bureau of EPS, I am responsible for overseeing our sexual assault section, and it was my team that put out a release 2 days ago about the unsolved sexual assault of a young woman in 2019. So I almost never see police releases like this in first person. This is kind of a new one to me, and I have real cynical ideas as to why they did that. All right, I'm going to skip over some of the details as to what's in there, again, because YouTube would not be happy, but I will link their statement in the description below. And they note that they had very little to work with, only that the suspect was black and about 5'4", with a black toque, pants, and sweater or hoodie, and that he had an accent. Of course, you're not going to get an accent off the DNA. In addition, we had no witnesses, no tips, no CCTV, and after 2 years, no leads. So they're a little desperate, right? To move this stalled case forward, our team members sought the advice of colleagues in other jurisdictions who had previously used DNA phenotyping and saw potential for it here. They commissioned a profile which we released on Tuesday. I have nothing but respect for my team for being willing to try every conceivable tactic to bring this case to a satisfactory conclusion. The victim deserves nothing less. I want to thank our people who do everything they can to pursue this work with rigor. They are relentless, and I will not ask them to be anything less. But we were not and are not oblivious to the legitimate questions raised about the suitability of this type of technology. You mean that it's basically pseudoscience when you start generating pictures like this? Yeah. The potential that a visual profile can provide far too broad a characterization from within a racialized community, and in this case, Edmonton's black community, was not something I adequately considered. There is an important need to balance the potential investigative value of a practice with the all too real risks and unintended consequences to marginalized communities. Again, the issue here is that they just made up a picture and put it out there. And so they're basically throwing a dart into a crowd and hoping that by some random chance it's going to hit the right person. Ugh. In our release, we did try to qualify the benefits and limits of the technique we used here. We felt we were clear on its limit. I can tell you the public was not clear on its limit. I have seen people sharing on Facebook, do you know this person? I have seen people sharing on Twitter, do you know this person? When that's a made-up person. It's not actually, yeah. So we indicated we saw it as a last resort. This is on the same line as when they go to like psychics or tea leaf reading or, yeah, this is not last resort. This should never have been used. And we thank the media who attended our briefing for producing careful and balanced stories that similarly noted the intent of this work and the very fair criticisms that need to be considered. Yeah, I have some thoughts on that too, but there's only so long I want this video to be, so maybe I can't get into just how uncritically the media swallowed some of this. Although some reporters did, to their credit, did push back. So props to those reporters. So anytime we use a new technology, especially one that does raise concerns about profiling of a marginalized group, we cannot be careful enough in how we validate these efforts and fully transparently consider the risks. We've heard legitimate external criticism, and we've done our own gut checks internally to determine whether we got the balance right, and as a leader, I don't think I did. While the tension I felt over this was very real, I prioritized the investigation, which in this case involved the pursuit of justice for the victim, herself a member of a racialized community, over the potential harm to the black community. This was not an acceptable trade-off, and I apologize for this. I'm guessing that they're not saying we accept any consequences, because that's not really how they roll there. So, I mean, this first person apology is not coming with any sort of personal sacrifice or anything like that. It's just coming as a way to deflect criticism here. And you note that this is not sort of an apology, really, because they're like, well, we were doing the right thing, but whoops. No, I mean, again, it's really important when we think about all of this to note that this is basically just made up, this picture. So, yeah. For this reason, EPS will be taking the following steps today. We're going to remove the visuals provided with this release from our website, and we'll remove our social media images altogether, effective this morning. We will be reviewing our internal processes to better ensure the appropriate, robust, and stress-tested tools are in place to better inform our decisions on such matters going forward, and we will continue to prioritize and explore every conceivable and appropriate means to find justice for the victim in this case. She deserves our continued efforts and focus, and we will not give up our efforts for her. And then thank you, and there's a sign off. Now, as I noted here, my read on sort of the result of this is that ultimately this has not helped the pursuit of the offender, who should absolutely be pursued. You know, this is absolutely a really important case, and they should be doing this. But this actually has hurt, in my estimation, their chances of getting an ultimate conviction on this, because it may have created a defense. You know, I look nothing like that dude, that didn't exist before. And a jury might go with that. They might say, well, I mean, we've got a DNA match, but at the same time, this other DNA testing company says this is the guy, and they're not the same guy, so we can't convict. We got reasonable doubt. That's entirely a possibility, and I will 100% expect to see that argument, assuming that it's not foreclosed by some sort of, you know, judicial ruling or something along those lines. So, you know, and as mentioned, this could prevent real tips from being made, because people say, oh, well, the person I thought might be involved looks nothing like that. You know, maybe you saw somebody leaving the scene in a hurry and, you know, they otherwise match the description, but they don't look like that. So, nah, the police don't need to know that now. Whoops. So, I mean, bad science is one of the major factors behind wrongful convictions. It is something that has been seen over and over and over again. It's been implicated in numerous reports that were generated after very public wrongful convictions of people. So when the police are going to use these scientific methods here, they need to be really sure that the science is solid and that they're not being sold $10,000, you know. Some of what they're getting, I'm sure, is good information, but the problem is that it's not good enough right now to generate a face. And any face that we've got is only a potential face, not the face. And that's the problem that we're into here. That's sort of the crux of the issue. Beyond this face that we got, there's not really any new information. In fact, the initial report seems to be the better source of information, because it gives us 5'4", it gives us clothing details, it gives us an accent. Maybe there's a possibility for an audio recognition if they could determine what, you know, sort of accent. Yeah, this is really frustrating, and I've seen a lot of people out there saying, well, you know, the criticism of this is just people being overly woke. Well, no, this isn't a woke issue at all. This is a we need to actually solve crimes issue. And this is not solving crimes. Anyway, I guess that's my rant on this one. I really wanted to sort of share this with you guys because this is frustrating. And I'll just mention, just because it seems to be relevant here, right now the EPS is asking for a larger budget with the city. And right now, the currently Edmonton Police, their funding is 22% of property tax revenues. So that's a huge chunk of change. That's a lot of money we're spending on the police. And if they've got it to waste on, you know, on things that are not real information, maybe that's something we should consider when we're doing the budget. They seem to have no shortage of money for buying aircraft and armored vehicles and basically tea leaf reading. Do we really want to throw more money at this if this is sort of the results we're getting? I don't know. I have some concerns about how this budget process is looking, but what can I do? All right. Thank you guys for watching. Please like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to see more content, do all of the YouTube things, push buttons, wiggle joystick, because that's the kind of thing that tells YouTube that you weren't just napping through this and that you'd like to see more of this stuff. So I appreciate all of you. If you leave a comment, let me know what you think, because you might think I'm out to lunch on this one. Certainly, I'm sure there's somebody out there who's going to be like, whoa, Runkle, I disagree with you. And that's cool too. That's part of having dialogue. So I also want to thank my Patreon supporters. There's a link to the Patreon below if you want to become one of them. But at the $50 level, Canada's National Firearms Association, the CCFR, and the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. At the $30 level, Sights and Arms Limited. And at the $20 level, Mark, Jane Babe and Luxor, Haywire, Dale Nesbitt, Cameron Johnson, Andrew Elsich, and Vicky. Thank you as well to my $10 supporters who will be in the crawl immediately following. Thank you for watching. I hope this has armed you with knowledge. See you next time.